kids. They're not your kids. And God help any you might have.
Oh, get out of here. Go on, you nosy bitch. Just get out of here.
There's nothing wrong with your pacemaker. Oh, damn. There's no getting away from these things, not even in the loo. Excuse me a moment, I won't be a second. Yes? What? Say that again, I can't hear you. Yes, well, look, I'm pretty tied up at the moment. Could you ask Dr. Morris to have a look at that? Oh, yes, of course, I forgot it was his morning for the clinic. Look, it doesn't sound too serious. Just keep an eye on her, and I'll be there as soon as possible, all right? Yes, well, I'm doing an ECG at the moment, so it shouldn't be too long. Yeah, right, thanks. Goodbye.
I did warn you, Mrs. Davidson, and Mr. Fletcher. She was just faking that heart attack so she could escape.
The tests are not complete. As far as the doctor can ascertain, she was not faking.
She certainly made a quick recovery.
The dryers temporarily affected the pacemaker.
She's been working there for days.
I am not a heart specialist, Miss Bennet, nor do I believe are you. I'm merely telling you what I have been told. If Bryant were too close to the dryers, the electrical activity could quite easily slow down the pacemaker.
You said temporarily.
As soon as she moved away from the source of interference, it returned to normal.
I wouldn't put it past her if she knew that all along. Some of these women would do anything to get out of here.
Unfortunately, that will not help the police to find her, and there's nothing in the file to suggest where she might go.
Well, it is possible she could be trying to get back to America.
Well, she's been in Australia for 20 years.
But there is a reason why she'd want to go back. I may be wrong, mind you, but she's had a letter telling her her father's dying.
How did you find that out?
Well, I sensed the mail. I asked Paul to have a word with her. Naturally, he told her that compassionate leave was out of the question.
When did this happen?
Day before yesterday?
Why was I not informed?
Well, there didn't seem to be any need. I mean, Judy accepted it. We got the impression that although she was fond of her father, she hadn't heard from him since she left.
Is there anything else you've forgotten to tell me?
Mrs. Davidson, we didn't deliberately set out to keep anything from you.
I suggest you go through Bryant's records again, just to be on the safe side.
I'm sure if there had been something there,
I would be happier if you double-checked, Mrs. Jackson. Then, as you are supposed to be off duty, I suggest you go home.
Wouldn't you think she'd have learnt by now not to take those women at face value? She and Paul Reed are two of a kind. Always very quick to take the side of the inmates against the system. I mean, you only had to look at what he did yesterday. If I hadn't been in his office, Doreen Burns could have been arranging anything with that husband of hers, and he wouldn't have lifted a finger to stop her.
A slight exaggeration, wouldn't you say, Miss Bennet?
I'm merely making a point. Or are you going to ignore Burns's behavior as well?
No, I am not. And will you please stop trying to tell me how to do my job?
Kevin really needs the work, Bea. I only rang him to tell him to make a lower offer on that delivery contract.
Yeah, well, so you keep telling me, and you just had to make it in front of Vera, didn't you?
I said I was sorry.
Well, why on earth didn't you tell me instead of going off half-cocked?
Yeah, if you've buggered it up for the rest of us, you're going to
Well,
be...
it isn't Queen Solomon. But then you've had a lot of experience in the botching up department, haven't you? So until you can actually get something right for a change, just belt up. Now, let's get a few things straight. This work program is for all of us. So if one of you gets it stopped because you can't think of anyone else but yourself, I'll be waiting for you. Hey, Burke. You missed one.
That's not bloody well fair. I have to wash them. Oh, give it to me, you clumsy drongo.
About time. Where have you two been? Picking up the laundry in Sydney.
We've just been in the nursery. We saw Chrissy's little kid. Oh, you should see her. She's grown that much. A real little sweetheart. And Chrissy treats her just like a real princess. I never saw such a change in anybody.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Get a woman in here for murder. All she cares about is looking after her kid. And you get another one who doesn't even know what the word mother means.
Yeah. What rotten mongrel would bash a little kid?
Yeah, I never laid in any of mine unless they asked for it. And I never set out to hurt them.
They take your kids away from you because they say you're a crim and they reckon you can't look after them properly. And they really ought to take them away from the bash artists, who should never have had them in the first place.
Most women would kill to protect their kids. Must take a real sickie to lay into a 3-year-old.
They ought to be put out of their misery.
Cats never leave their kittens.
I think scum like that would do the world a favour. Put an end to themselves. Save someone else having to do it for them.
Mrs. Jackson, what are you still doing here?
I wanted to talk to Paul Reed about Gail Summers. I didn't think it could wait.
May I ask what it's about?
The woman who's supposed to be looking after Gail's children isn't fit to be near them. Thank heavens Child Welfare has stepped in and taken them away. I thought Paul should know so that he could tell Gail as soon as possible.
I see. I take it you've been associating with an inmate's family.
Well, they do live next door to me. I took it for granted you knew. I was the one who reported the child abuse in the first place, although I assumed it was the father and not Gail.
You and Mr. Reed have been taking a great deal on your shoulders lately.
Mrs. Davidson, Mr. Reed is a social worker. He is supposed to handle the women's personal problems in here and outside.
A little more of the social worker and less of the solitary worker, and we may avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble. In future, I want any information about an inmate to come directly to my office. I want reports from all the staff to be on my desk no later than 5 o'clock every afternoon. If there is anyone who does not like the way I run Wentworth, then they can apply for a transfer, and I shall be only too happy to endorse it.